Chapter 136 Yan Clan. I will also travel with everyone. Vagabond Hong Lian declared quite bluntly. Good, good. Brother Han, do you also plan go with us as well? Taoist priest Qingwen had a happy appearance and then asked Han Li. When Han Li heard this, he hesitated. It would be reasonable to say that for a young person like him, it would be best to follow this small group. However, he didn't know why, but in his heart, he felt that something wasn't right. Had he truly made that decision, he was certain to regret it. I will decide after the conclusion of the trade meet. I am not anxious. Han Li said with a smile. He decided to first wait a bit before making a decision. Yi? Han Li's words clearly went against their expectations and shocked everyone. For what reason does Brother Han hesitate? Us rogue cultivators are together so that others can't bully us. What's even more is that Brother Han was able to see through my thieving skills. This little brother has much interest in swapping pointers with you at a later date. Wu Juzi said, somewhat dissatisfied. After Han Li heard the youth's words, he did not get angry. He only smiled and spoke no more. Brother Han didn't say that he was certain to not get along with us on the journey. He simply said that he wanted to think about it. That too is only natural. Taoist priest Qingwen immediately mediated. That's right. Taoist priest Qingwen spoke the words in my mind. I have a few secret problems that are truly somewhat difficult to say. That is why I must be a bit cautious. Han Li seemed to be very grateful towards Taoist priest Qingwen and gave an expression that he was speaking from his heart. So it turned out I was just being meddlesome. The youth felt as if he had become ostracized and became displeased. Taoist priest Qingwen helplessly smiled. With the look of an elder brother apologizing for a mischievous little brother, he inwardly apologized to Han Li. Han Li naturally did not take this matter to heart. Since this matter had already been resolved, everyone stood up one after another and took their leave. Han Li looked for an empty room on the second floor to retire for the night. On the second day, except for Han Li and the Buddhist monk, everyone else left the building and went together to the vendor stands. At this moment, the Buddhist monk was in the hall of the first floor meditating and chanting scriptures. Han Li was in his room, lightly stroking a dozen paper talismans and lost in thought. These so-called elementary low-grade paper talismans have a slight flicker of spiritual light. They're largely different from the paper talismans of the secular world, not because the materials are special but rather due to the addition of some kind of magic technique. Han Li thought. Han Li took out the paper talismans, which he originally planned to use, in order to learn the soul lock technique. However, he suddenly remembered he couldn't seem to draw the soul lock talismans on the bright side. He still needed a writing brush and cinnabar sand, two items that seemed to be sold at vendor stalls. Could it be that these paper talismans couldn't be used in conjunction with secular objects and were limited to items unique to cultivators? With this thought, Han Li could not sit still in the room, so he decided to go find the Buddhist monk. In any case, he wouldn't be able to hide the fact he was a novice cultivator. He may as well calmly and directly ask. Almsgiver's thoughts are correct. To successfully draft a spiritual talisman, apart from having to refine the talisman paper from special materials, you also must use a concoction of demonic beast blood and cinnabar. As for the writing brush, it depends on the situation. After Buddhist monk Ku Sang heard Han Li's question, he peacefully answered. Master Ku Sang, what do you mean that it depends on the situation? Han Li earnestly asked, sitting across the monk. His appearance didn't hold the slightest amount of shame. Most of the brushes cultivators use to draft spiritual talismans, apart from those created from the spiritual hair from demonic beasts, are made of heavenly bestowed precious earthly charcoal. These can increase the rate of success when creating talismans as well as the talisman's might. However, if you do not have them, you can even use common secular brushes, but if you do, the rate of success is far too pitiful. The Buddhist monk lightly shook his head. He seemed to disapprove of Han Li using that last method to refine talismans. Many thanks for Master's instructions. I will go out to see whether I can exchange for a brush to make talismans. Han Li stood and cupped his fist towards the Buddhist monk. Giver, take care. The Buddhist monk closed his eyes once more and continued the great undertaking of his meditation. It seemed he would have to go out today. He remembered that the brush and cinnabar were not inexpensive. It would cost approximately 6 or 7 low-grade spirit stones. Could it be that he would have to sell the flight talisman he had barely been able to acquire? Han Li thought this as he walked. People were also exciting the building and walked over to the marketplace. Since it was currently morning, cultivators on the road were grouped in 2 and 3s and were not at all lonely. However, they seemed to all be heading toward the marketplace. It appeared that the majority of them were like his own group, heading out to set up a vendor stall. Quick, look! A huge bird. A male cultivator suddenly cried out in alarm. Soon after, a large shadow swept across the road Han Li and other cultivators were treading. Han Li was quite startled and hastily raised his head to look. He saw a 2-headed monstrous bird about the size of a calf, flying past over him. This bird somehow seemed to resemble an eagle and also something else entirely. Gray feathers covered its entire body. Its wings were 7 feet wide, and it possessed a pair of sharp sickle-like claws. Above the 2 neck were 2 bald, fierce bird heads with 4 eyes that glowed with a green light. What a frightening demonic bird! How unsightly! How large! Quickly capture it, it would make a great mount. The cultivators below stopped one after another and started to talk. It seemed that there were even a few eager to try to capture it. You don't value your lives. That is the 2-headed duck, a spiritual bird raised by the number 1 cultivator clan, Gyo Mountain's Yan clan. It's certain to have a member of the Yan clan riding on it. Are you looking to bring about your own destruction? These ice-cold words woke up a few from their beautiful dreams. Yan clan? One of the large cultivation sects, the cultivator clan that hold core formation experts in reserve? Someone cried out. What other Yan clan is there? I came here a bit earlier and already saw the 2-headed duck. I also found out that a brother and sister from the Yan clan are participating in the Great Immortal Ascension Assembly's tournament. The cultivator said, proudly showing off. No. The Yan clan sent people to participate in the Great Immortal Ascension Assembly. Previously, they never sent anyone. If they did, then wouldn't there definitely be 2 less spots? That's right. If one were to come across the 2 from the Yan clan, it would be great misfortune. The complexion of these cultivators were somewhat unsightly, and a few even deeply sighed. Han Li coldly looked at the monstrous bird flying into the distance without speaking. After seeing this demonic bird, it was clear this was the monstrous eagle that Zai Tianyu had seen before, and the male and female immortals were the brother and sister from the Yan clan. Han Li grew deep in thought and passed through the rowdy nearby cultivators, going on his way. In the end, he faintly smiled and walked with ease. Currently, the people in the plaza were quite numerous. Although it could not compare with yesterday night's liveliness and bustle, it could be considered completely crowded. Han Li groped the pill medicine in his bosom and decided to see whether he could exchange this medicine for some items. As a result, he didn't enter from the entrance he previously used and entered the plaza from the other end. He planned to begin his stroll from the other side. On the way, Han Li occasionally browsed left and right, looking at vendor stalls' various materials and talismans. A few odd and wonderful magic tools also gave him a feast for the eyes. Suddenly, Han Li's footsteps stopped in front of some vendor stall. He looked at a thin book on display, somewhat lost in thought. The tile showing the book's price noted, Eternal Spring Arts, would attribute Foundation Cultivation Technique. Costs 2 low-grade spirit stones. I want this book. Han Li calmly said to the vendor after he picked up this book and flipped through it.